Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, and to make things interesting when it comes to feeding my worm bins, we've been adopting different feeding approaches to different systems. We got a system where we've been stacking the food into layers and calling it a lasagna bin. I've got one where I've been going from corner to corner, rotating the feeding location, alternating on each occasion. That's sort of our pocket feeding or corner feeding system. And what we adopted in this 58-day-old system down here on the floor next to the buckets, it's what we're referring to up until now as the ping-pong approach to feeding, going back and forth from one side of the bin to the other. And we've sort of settled into a 10-day interval at this point. So it's been 10 days since we checked in on here last. And I wanted to come in here and apply today's ping-pong feeding. So let's get this thing up on the bench and get to work. First impression I get when I look in here is that our little flying insect friends have found upon this place as their hangout, it seems. Look at this, like a little fold on the plastic, a little place where they can kind of nestle together and hide out, and they're all over it. And I got a feeling it's the proximity to all this moisture right here that makes this into such an appealing spot. I wonder what I could do to, I don't know, limit this or reduce it or eliminate it would be ideal. I mean, the moisture is really sweet, and I'm sure the worms underneath it really enjoy it. But I could see all kinds of little flying insects getting on the move now, because they're all down here enjoying this little swimming pool. I mean, there is a lot of moisture hanging out over here. The plastic collects it up, doesn't let it evaporate. It drops back down in the form of condensation right onto that paper, and makes for a pretty cozy spot. I mean, you can see some castings on here. It's evidence of worm traffic, but not a whole lot, to tell you the truth. So maybe, I don't know, I'm wondering what we can do about that. I like the idea of getting rid of the bugs, that's for sure. But in these new systems, I really like the benefit that the plastic brings in terms of keeping things nice and moist. I don't know. I have been thinking about bringing my bug zapper down here. I mentioned it on numerous occasions. So really quick, I've got, my feeding zone indicator thing here, and it probably makes good sense, because if that wasn't there, you wouldn't even know where to look within this bin to try to find where the last feeding was applied. I leveled things off pretty good, so that is where we placed the last feeding, which was pineapple and a couple of citrus items. So I put a little listing here together because it's hard to remember at this point. The list is starting to grow. But the first feeding of kiwi and celery came down the middle, and then when we came in here on feeding number 2 and decided to adopt the ping-pong or back and forth approach by bringing in the cabbage, we just consolidated and we pulled the leftovers of the kiwi together with the cabbage, put it in there, and then after the cabbage came the pumpkin feeding, including the stem of the pumpkin, which ended up on the opposite side. Then came the pineapple. So pineapple being here means pumpkin stem over here, and then going back one more to when cabbage was placed in here together with the kiwi. I mean, I could see maybe finding some kiwi leftovers in there, but cabbage, I don't know. After that much time, it seems very unlikely. So the feeding that they're going to get today is going to go in on this side, and it's a whole bunch of cantaloupe melon rinds. There's some other things mixed in here. You might be able to see that there's strawberry tops in here and some other stuff. But I've got like a couple more bags of cantaloupe melon rind of this quantity that I need to do away with. So I think I'll be feeding cantaloupe rind on a few occasions now. Coming up, let's take a peek at how this pineapple's coming along. I'm really curious. It was a pretty good sized chunk, and I guess the theme of this last feeding was sort of in that category of forbidden citric acid type feeding, because not only was it pineapple, but it was orange and lemon, those things that are probably a little bit more commonly known as having citric acid in them. But the pineapple too has it. And I did kind of a funny thing here where I cut the pineapple open in such a way that it all stayed together, the whole skin of it. And I fished out the internal bits of it to eat. And then what remained was this one thing that I was able to sort of fold together. And a lot of people were saying, you should really open that thing up if you want to see any worm action. I just thought it would be kind of interesting to put it in here all together. So there were a few parts of it that I couldn't show last time because the whole thing was frozen solid and I couldn't, open it up this way. But there was this tough, fibrous inner core of the pineapple that you normally don't eat, and then I guess this would have been where the you know, the top of it where the leaves are, you know, the leaves are. The leaves have been long since composted or sent out into the composting system outside. And I don't know. How do we proceed? Do we put it back in jumbled up? Do we spread it out? I have no objection to spreading it out. It might increase traffic, but speaking of traffic, I'm just curious to see what does the worm turnout around the feeding area look like. It does seem like they're not put off by the pineapple. I'm just trying to see if there's any signs of the other two citrus things that we put in here, things that are more commonly identifiable as citrus, the orange and the lemon. There's just these weird odors coming out of here. It's just, you could tell that there was stuff in here like that type. So this might be the kiwi, actually. Yeah, I see the little dark seeds in the green goo, and then there's that tough, weird, sort of fuzzy outer skin. So that's just another throwback to feeding number 1, which at this point, geez, goes quite a way back. I can't remember how far. Let's see, what's this? Okay. This must be, oh, now I remember. We actually used a couple of these coffee filters to sort of nestle the foods into little pockets in a way. I don't know what to expect. I don't try composting stuff like citrus very often. I don't keep away from it per se. Ooh. Because it's treated as a forbidden thing, but I'm trying not to breathe in what you might be able to see as sort of the spores coming off this very moldy orange. Wow. There was mold. I saw mold growing on the orange when we fed it originally, and it was actually dry on the inside. It seemed like the mold had come on in already and started taking advantage of the moisture that's present in there. So perhaps the first thing we'll see is just a complete drying out of this citrus as a result of the mold getting in there first, and then maybe later the worms will come in and do a cleanup. So that's kind of interesting. I just don't see that very often. I just want to get it submerged. I want to get it back under the surface so it can continue. And then I guess next time we come back in here, we'll be coming in here with more food for them. And that was the one part of this thing that seemed to me like it was going to put a major kink into the whole game plan, because there's already just so much in this side of the bin. To come in here with more stuff next time, not sure if that's the best idea. Perhaps we'll have to come up with some sort of a tweak to our little ping-pong style of feeding here. So I guess we're going to see what we can do about giving these chunks of paper here a little bit better access to worm traffic. Being a little gift wrapping around the foods didn't really seem to help a whole lot, other than maybe the mold remained protected so that it could work its way into the citrus. Man, that's so weird. Maybe if we face it down, I don't know. Let's just start spreading this stuff out a little bit here. Maybe we can even open this thing up a little bit. We'll have both citrus items out on the edges, and then we'll see about just getting this whole thing in here too. Look at the size of this thing. It's got some good weight to it too. Whether or not it's something that the worms can actually be working on right now or not, though, I don't know. So this just might be one of those things that takes a good amount of time before the worms can actually start digging into it. I also wonder about it being, folded over. Is it now going to get better traffic because we're going to put it back in here open rather than being closed up on itself? Maybe. So here too, let's just put a little intermediate layer here using all the things that we already found as being part of this ping-pong feeding here, and get everything back into action. I can already hear a lot of you people saying, "Oh my goodness, look at all that food. Why are you even adding food today?" Well, I mean, look at this stuff. It's sitting here. Yeah, there's a lot of it, but do you see a lot of worms eating it? No, I don't think so. When we first came in, there were some worms around it. So maybe they're working on it, but I got a feeling not all of it is immediately available to them, Unlike the cantaloupe melon that they're going to get now, because that stuff's probably within as soon as it thaws out, I would imagine they could probably begin nibbling on it. And then maybe that'll give this pineapple a little bit more time so that it can break down a little bit further. So the worms can start moving in on it. So we'll just try to keep them feeling pretty well fed. Not kind of just, having a big pile of potential future food sitting there in front of them as like a big tease. We're just going to give them stuff that they can actually eat. So now on this opposite side is where we would have one large leftover, which will be in here for some time. Here it is. It's the stem of the pumpkin. The pumpkin bits that were fed at the same time, I guess at this point 20 days ago, nearly 3 weeks ago, are long gone at this point. This thing's actually starting to soften up pretty good too. A lot of times we start to see worms wanting to burrow down into this material, and actually I could already see one. If I slow down just enough, I can see a worm that's already kind of moved in on this thing. And it's weird too, because it does seem like they're nibbling their way through it. So who knows, the thing could be full of worms for all I know. So we'll make sure to put that right back in here too, alongside the fresh feeding of cantaloupe rinds that they're going to get here, and strawberry and other things. So let's see. It's always a little bit more difficult to see the worms in a system like this because all the fresh bedding is almost like camo for these little guys. This must be another little piece of bedding that came in here. I don't even know what else would be in here other than the pumpkin. There's a lot of little babies. When I slow down, a lot of times it's really just a matter of slowing down long enough to let stuff around you begin moving so you can actually see it. Just in the process of, very quickly swiping through the stuff all the time, I bet you just miss a whole lot of action as a result of just not going through it slowly and being able to actually observe what's going on. This is one of those newer systems that has come online since I've purchased my new shredder. So man, I've been real generous with the bedding. I mean, we'll come in here with a little bit of extra bedding to go hand in hand with the melon bits and the strawberry tops. I got a soiled paper towel. I've got a coffee filter where I had fed the coffee that was in it to one of my older worm bins the other day, and I just didn't want to include the paper. I just wanted to include the coffee. So we'll include that paper here today as the bedding to go as the complement to today's feeding. And I think just whatever's down here already, some of this cardboard and paper is going to serve as a nice foundation for today's feeding. We'll try to protect any little wormies that are hanging out in the material right below from the freezing cold stuff coming in on top. We'll lay down a little insulation. Why don't we use this new coffee filter out on the top to show ourselves where we last fed, and we'll take this one that's been in the bin for a while now. It's already infiltrated heavily with all the little helper organisms in the bin, all the microbes and fungi. We'll get that down in here with the food rather than that brand new sterile coffee filter. Now we've got a good safe spot to drop all of this frozen junk onto, and hopefully a deep enough hole that it all gets covered up when we backfill. Let's see how much it is. Sometimes it is a little bit deceiving. It looks like it's going to be so much, and once it's in the bin, you spread it out. It doesn't really seem as much as an intimidating large feeding. So this is just the sort of stuff that I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of leftovers of. I'm sure there'll be leftovers if we come back another 10 days from now. And then maybe 20 days from now, there might be still that tough outer portion, but I would think that the majority of the leftover melon, the fruit itself, on the rind will be stripped off. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it's sort of a, hey, how badly are your worms distracted by the other feeding in the bin? Maybe it'll take time for them to lose interest or finish their work on that before they come over to really attack this stuff. But I don't know, I guess we'll have to see. I've got a little bit of my pulverized eggshell here. And drop it in here. I'm noticing that I was possibly not very quality control minded when I made this stuff the other day. And I vaguely remember little opportunities to have been more careful that I missed. So some of the chunks in here are a little bit larger than usual. Usually I'm pretty particular about my my grit that I put in for my worms. I try to run it all through a strainer, kitchen strainer, to make sure it's all fine enough for all the worms to utilize. But I've got some large bits in here that didn't get broken up completely. Oh well, no big deal. I'm not going to sweat it. All right, very nice. Just kind of loosely cover up here with all this stuff, and paper towel, soiled paper towel, a little bit of coffee filter. I think we've got so much bedding in this system, I don't want to go overboard using any of my prepared bedding in here. Here and there we'll just use a little something like what we did today, just so that we don't go at the feeding without any supplemental bedding. But maybe we'll wait until things start to drop in here a little bit, because we did load this thing up with a whole bunch. I guess the whole thing of that is that it's meant to, you know, let the worms feel like they've got a whole bunch of range, a whole bunch of room to wander in. And, you know, noticing that there's a lot of space, maybe they'll start dropping off cocoons and trying to increase their numbers, noticing that there's room for more. So I think, you know, I'm wondering about how to cover up here. I like the coverage of the plastic for sure, especially on a system like this full of paper that would just dry off in a minute if you left it uncovered. And I like the landing pad that this piece of paper bag provides. I'm just not fond of all the insects coming by to hang out on it. I'm just wondering if I could somehow let this top surface be a little bit drier. Do we switch from plastic to cardboard? You know what's going to happen is they're going to get inside the layers of the cardboard. I've just got this feeling that I'm going to have to at some point soon bring my little zapper down from outside. It's actually outside. It's plugged in and everything. It's all set to go. But I mean, it's winter time. There's no bugs outside. Could probably use that thing for a little while down here. Maybe zap out all these little bugs that have made themselves really at home in my systems, and possibly prevent the matter from getting worse. I don't know. Whatever. That's a topic for another day. So that's pretty much it. We're done here. This is now ping-pong feeding number 4, 5 feedings overall, so that first feeding was not on the side. So let's see, how did it go? It went celery combined with the kiwi leftovers, cabbage, pumpkin, pineapple, and now cantaloupe. So it's a good thing that I've got my little diagram, otherwise I would forget. Oh yeah, some of you might have noticed that I sort of had a little annotation down here at the bottom. It makes reference to a 25-day-old final haul out. I mean, it's not 25 days at this point. Today it would be 25 days if we did it, but we're not going to do it today. I just wanted to sort of bring up the parent container that these worms originally came from. When that system came to an end, some of the worms got hauled out into here. This is the first system that got created, and then later on, when we took out the final haul out of worms from that system, there was a second container launched. So we've got two sort of sister bins running parallel to one another, this being the older of them. And the parent bin actually might have some babies left in it. You know, we did do the haul outs pretty abruptly. We got the migration done. And I just had this feeling that there might be cocoons, there might be babies left behind. So, you know, I didn't really do it officially. I made no mention of it in a video till now. But in that container of supposedly finished castings, I do have a piece of cantaloupe sitting out there, hopefully attracting worms. I've not checked in on it since that other system was launched and we did that final haul out, so it's 25 days in progress of who knows what. So maybe one of these days we'll we'll get into that finished container, see how many worms, babies we've been able to collect up, or stragglers, and maybe add them to this system. But okay, that's it for today, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always very much appreciated. Also consider subscribing to the channel too. That's really appreciated as well. And I've also got channel memberships on now if you want to be a supporting member. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.